Hey, and welcome to the Dram and Stone podcast, a podcast where two friends raise a glass and have a conversation. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kyle.
Kyle.
Hey, Nick.
Welcome to 2025.
Crazy.
I know.
Who knew we'd get here?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if you'd have told me back in 2019 when we started this bad boy, we made it in 2025? I don't know.
Well, not only that, but if you'd have told me in 1995 that someday you'd be in 2025, I would have been like, what? And then I would have done the math and be like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. If they say 2065, what?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Might get there.
Maybe. Yeah.
Modern medicine.
Sure, yeah. We're hopeful in some ways.
Certainly possible.
Yeah.
Or at least digitally.
Sure. Just upload me to a computer. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
I feel like that can't be too far off.
Kyle, most people in the podcasting world today are releasing their year in review episodes and the here's what we hope to accomplish in 2025.
Yeah, but we're not going to do that.
Absolutely not. Why not?
Well, because it's the holidays.
We're
kind of taking it easy too.
Exactly. And we want some easy episodes to edit.
Yeah.
And that seems like an editing, not easy episode to edit.
Nah, or prepare for.
That's mainly it.
Yeah.
We've not prepared for that at all.
So we'll get that one to you next week.
Correct. Or maybe the week after.
Yeah, who knows?
But basically,
maybe sometime in May.
I was going to say, by the... You read my mind. By the end of 2025, you will have the 2024.
We will have recap 2024.
Correct. And then we'll talk about 2026.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So this week, Kyle, because we're not doing the recap thing, I feel like we should just do a normal Drip and Stone episode.
Heck yeah. That's what people want.
Yeah, I think it's refreshing in some ways because everybody else is recapping all the crap.
Yeah. You're tired of hearing New Year's resolutions.
Exactly.
You just want some normality.
Sure.
Back.
So speaking of normality.
Yep.
I say we... do some scotch.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It is. We should go make a bonfire and sit outside the bonfire and drink some scotch.
Okay.
Because it's smoky scotch season, and it's also bonfire season.
Right.
So why not
do the thing?
I mean, here in Florida, anyway. If you're you're probably not going to do a bonfire in January in Wisconsin.
Well, so when was the last time you did a bonfire?
Like a big bonfire, just
an actual bonfire.
Oh, it's been a while. I make a campfire in the backyard kind of thing.
Sure.
A couple pieces of wood and but bonfire.
Yeah.
Probably 6 years, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. It's been a minute.
Was it one that you constructed? Or was it one where you went to an event?
I went to a party. I don't know if it was a New Year's party. It was a party though. Yeah. I didn't do it, but it's other people did.
The reason it just came up during the college football season, I was watching Game Day or something, and a story came on about a university that they had this huge tradition of a bonfire that one ended up getting out of hand one time.
Yeah.
And so I was explaining what a bonfire, what that's actually kind of like, and just being in the presence of a flame that big, and just how strange it is. So I mean, I haven't been to one since high school. Our high school used to do a big one, homecoming week or whatever.
Sure.
And it's just such a bizarre kind of experience to be around that kind of a flame.
People in Carroll's neighborhood, they used to throughout the year collect a bunch of yard trash and debris and stuff like that. They'd pile on a bunch of fallen trees and if you've got a chest of drawers that you
don't want no more.
Exactly.
We'll take care of it.
Literally the entire neighborhood would throw out their Christmas tree basically the same day.
Right.
So they'd go over and pick everybody's Christmas tree up and chuck it in this pile. And man, that thing, easy 40, 50 foot flames.
Right.
Easy. They put it in a big field. They'd be safe-ish.
I'd have a hose running.
Yeah.
Thing got out of hand.
Yeah. But that thing was you could easily feel it from the outside of that field.
Right.
That's how big this flame was.
Right.
It was intense.
Yeah, that stuff is wild.
Yeah.
I remember going to the one that was at our high school, and you couldn't really watch it, or you'd constantly have to readjust how you were facing the thing, because that whatever's catching that that heat would just
that radiant heat
would just start radiating, and you just have to kind of
I gotta turn everybody.
I gotta turn my back to it for a minute
to stand far enough away, nobody else is standing that far away,
right?
So
you kind of have to get in there and just
why's my jacket melting?
Yeah.
Should I be
I should
concerned?
take a step back, guys. I should take a step back.
Exactly. I do love a good fire. Do love a good bonfire.
Yep.
And you know what else goes with a good fire and a bonfire?
What's that?
That's some smoky scotch.
Some smoky scotch.
So Kyle, I have brought for us a Laphroaig Dram. You can see, like, I'm holding this. This is the upgraded Dram from Laphroaig.
Nice.
You ever seen one?
How'd you get that?
Well, this is actually from the Friends of Laphroaig, and you have to go to Laphroaig, and like if you buy a bottle of Laphroaig,
Yep.
There's a code on the inside of that bottle in this little piece of paper.
Right, little pamphlet.
Yeah, you sign up for Friends of Laphroaig, and you enter that code for every bottle you drink or every bottle that you go to Total Wine, and just pop the little thing out, and you put in the number on that little paper.
Yeah,
basically.
Yep.
And it gets you points, and then you can be a friend of Laphroaig.
Right.
Well, if you do that enough times, and I think it's only like 3 bottles or something,
right?
Or you can go to Laphroaig and you can ask for your rent. Because as a friend of Laphroaig, you have a plot of land in their big peat field.
Nice.
Bog, whatever it's called.
Right.
And so I've seen it. It's right across the street from the distillery. You go there and it's just this like I don't think I'd want to walk out there because it's
a little squatchy.
It's a little squatchy. And it was, when I went, it was like, it was raining.
Right.
Like, it's not just like misting, like, yeah, exactly. You
just disappear.
Exactly. So I didn't go out and I didn't put my flag, because they get a flag. They give you some wellies, water galoshes.
Sure.
They give you those if you want, but I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I didn't go put my flag out there, but I did ask for my rent. And so you go up to like the counter, and the person behind the counter is like, what can I do for you? And you're like, I'm here to collect my rent.
Yep.
And they give you just a little bottle. It's up there on the shelf. A little bottle of Laphroaig. It's a normal bottle of Laphroaig. It's like 2 ounces. If you have a couple codes in there, you get what's called the upgraded Dram.
Right.
And so that's what I have here.
Right.
And the upgraded Dram is basically just the Laphroaig cask strength.
Right. So you text your buddy.
That's exactly.
You say, hey, bro, you got any Laphroaig codes laying around?
What I did. Exactly what I did. Yeah, because I was literally at the distillery when I texted you.
Yeah, I know.
And I was like, hey, I need you to text me a code.
Right.
And you came in clutch.
I had 2 or 3.
Yeah, you came in clutch.
Yeah.
And so that enabled me to get the upgraded Dram.
Nice.
So I figured, because you enabled me to get the upgraded Dram, I'm going to share it with you.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so this is the Laphroaig cask strength. It is batch 14.
Okay.
And it is bottled at 58.6.
That's a nice proof.
Yeah, that's 117.2 for those of you keeping track of that math.
Boom.
And I figured what we'll do is I have an open bottle here of the Laphroaig cask strength from 2019. That's batch 11.
Okay.
That I think we'll pair it with. What do you think?
I like that idea.
That's also 117.2.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like the standard for their cask strength.
Must be.
I got a new
Seems
version on the shelf, but I don't want to go up and like look at it.
You have another cask strength?
Yeah.
Is that the one that I bought you, or is this the one that I bought you?
No, that's the one.
This is still the first one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I just, for whatever reason, I don't dip
one of
into it
those
very
ones.
often. Yeah. Yeah.
It's back there.
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
A little cute little Dram here. Pretend there's a cork pop. Ready? Do it with me. Oh.
Nice. Hell yeah. That nice golden Laphroaig color.
Shall we? Get a little swirly swirl.
Bottoms up.
What's nice about Laphroaig and what's nice about the Laphroaig cask strength is you take all those Laphroaig notes
Laphroaig.
and you just push them a little bit further.
That medicinal goodness.
It tastes like Band-Aid.
It's really crazy. Like I can still remember my first Laphroaig Dram.
Uh-huh.
I was in New York City at Christmas time. Was waiting to go to the airport. We jumped into the bar at the hotel that we were staying at, and I got a pour of Laphroaig. I saw it there. First time I ever had. This was probably like 2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it just being just ashy and smoky and like just felt like I was chewing on a cigar.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And now to smell it now, I'm like, is there peat in this?
You're not wrong. Like to me, it's less peat and it's more medicinal.
It's more medicinal, more honey, more malty.
Yeah, it's crazy to think back then of going like, oh,
yeah.
and like when I talk to people about Laphroaig, I always tell them like Band-Aid medicinal, because that's where it is that's where it was then for me. That's where it is still for me.
Right.
But I know that that's part of the peat nature, but it's also very distinctly Laphroaig.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So like, I don't even necessarily, I tell people that it's peated, but I I don't try to talk about peat in that medicinal way. Because, like, for me, for whatever reason, it's just Laphroaig that does that.
Yeah, or at least that pronounced.
Sure.
It is very much a Laphroaig characteristic. Because, like, an Ardbeg, it's a smoky, like, campfire smoke.
Right.
Whereas that Laphroaig it just has that Band-Aidy antiseptic quality to it.
For sure.
That's just unique.
That's exactly what I get here with, like, touches of wine. Like, I don't know if it's like, it doesn't lean sherry necessarily, but it doesn't lean white wine. It's just like a wine quality.
Right.
General
Tanniny.
wine. Yeah.
And I think it's still so interesting that if you just say Scotch to a lot of people, this is Scotch.
Sure.
This is their understanding of what the huge umbrella that Scotch is. This is that.
Yeah.
They don't understand that. No, this is just a very unique type of Scotch.
Yeah.
And it's not even the main type of Scotch. This is just
Exactly.
very uniquely Isla Scotch.
It is Isla Scotch, and it's very uniquely Laphroaig.
Yeah.
Like, there ain't nothing like that.
Yeah. You could have an Isla Scotch is nothing like this.
Nothing like this at all.
But
Yeah.
they just don't understand that.
No. And like, I love having that conversation with people, though.
Oh, yeah, same.
Of like, oh, I love Scotch, but I don't like peat. And like, I get it.
Disagree. Actually, I hate that conversation.
Really?
I love listening to people talk about it that way, though. And like just letting them explain how they don't like Scotch because of it. But I don't like having that conversation because that's an experiential thing.
Yes, but I like having that conversation not in the like, let me school you way. I like having that conversation in the terms of like, hey, let me try and give you some understanding. And to be fair, I only have those conversations when I can give them that experience.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yes, all Scotch is not peaty, and this does not represent everything.
Right.
But here you go.
Right.
So I guess what I mean to say is like, I do love educating people. Like, in some way, like, that's what this podcast is too. Like, it's us educating ourselves, but by proxy, we're educating other people as well.
Sure.
We don't get it right all the time, but we get it right
At least
some of the time.
65% of the time.
It works every time.
Every time.
Right. Shall we?
Yes.
Yep.
It's delightful.
It's delightful. To me, it's less so on the nose and more so on the palate where the peat comes through.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But even still, I mean, it is. It's peaty.
Yeah.
It's there. It's a kick. But it's such a different peat than Ardbeg or what's the Brooklotti? The
Octomore?
I was thinking the other one.
Port Charlotte?
The Port Charlotte.
Yeah.
This one, it's almost like it's a different wood. I mean, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's still.
It's all peat.
Well, I mean, the nature of like the bitter is where I'm kind of like going because the peat takes me straight there. It's almost like it's like just a different. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it's just like a different earthy nature to that peat.
Isla is not a big island, but I know it's big enough where like you're gonna get some variations. And most of the peat that they're getting, from what I understand, I could be completely wrong. From what I understand, most of the peat that they're getting is within their general area. So yeah, maybe.
Right.
I don't know that to be 100% true. To me, Laphroaig peat leans more medicinal, but it's also like a brighter peat. It's not that, like you said at the beginning or a couple minutes ago about like that ashy campfire peat. It's not that anymore for me. It's less that and more like, or less dark and brooding and more like, here's like barbecue smoking. Like, you're not trying to like just like kill this thing with like char and ash and like burn it. You're trying to smoke something, like smoked fish, something
sure.
like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's more of something that's been saturated in smoke, not heavily roasted and toasted.
Correct.
To a char.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm going to open the batch 11. We just had the batch 14.
Something about a Laphroaig that just reminds me of like a 1980s nursing home.
It's actually on the bottle.
Where smoking is still absolutely a thing.
Encouraged?
Yeah, just a public thing. It still has some of that. Oh, yeah. Nose is definitely different.
Wow, that batch 11. Definitely more subdued, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that to me doesn't really nose that medicinal.
No, I just get like malty sweetness.
Yeah, I get malt and honey.
Yeah.
And maybe even like a little floral thing.
I literally, I was going to say like almost potpourri, like just like
that's
bright floral.
Pretty. Wow, that's bizarre.
Yeah, go back to it. Now I definitely see the similarities.
Yeah, you can see it's from the same concept. But yeah, this one still has like that medicinal touch on it. Maybe that's just like because it's fresher,
maybe,
quote unquote. That's really interesting.
Yeah, but go to the palate on the batch 11. Very similar on the note or on the palate.
Yep.
Really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
And being at the exact same proof, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's like super neat.
You know, here's a thing that is theoretically, you know, 5 years apart from one another.
Right.
Here are the differences.
Yeah, palate's almost identical.
I don't know. Going back to the 14, there's a bit more of a peppery note.
Right. I would agree. Leaning jalapeno.
Jalapeno. Yeah.
It's a spicy pepper.
The feeling that a jalapeno gives you in your mouth. Like, it's not like, it's that spicy, but it's also that like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that energy.
Yeah. Energy's pretty good. Man, what a cool experience, though.
That's fun. Good old Laphroaig.
Every time I have, like, for whatever reason, I'm not like super drawn to it, especially now because of our taxes and the way things have gone here. Laphroaig used to be a pretty affordable bottle, and I think now it's less so. It's like in that $70 range, and it's a little like
creeping up.
Yeah, and I know it's good, but like, do I want to spend $70 on a bottle of Laphroaig when I can spend $70 on something new or something elsewhere? So that's a little bit of a difficult conversation for me. But every time I have it, I'm like, put right back at the beginning of my peated Scotch journey. I love revisiting brands and bottles that got me started in things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like revisiting an old friend, but in some ways it's like, oh yeah, I remember why I liked that.
Right.
And I remember why this was my, you know, for whatever reason, it could have been my entry into smoky Scotches, could have been anything, but this was it.
Well, yeah. And this bottle specifically, surely you had another one that you finished, a Laphroaig cask strength.
Nope. That's it.
Because like that was, I feel like that's why the one that I bought you was like such a high order, was like you were either almost done with it or you were about to be done with it or something.
No, I wanted it because I knew it was a new batch and I only had about half of a bottle. I literally have not had any of it since this.
Interesting. Because there was a point in time where the Laphroaig cask strength was like your it bottle.
Oh yeah.
There for a second. So it is fun to like come back to that and be like, yeah, no, that's still really good.
Agreed. I love it.
Yeah. Snow barbecue.
That's really good. I was gonna say, like, I've had a lot of really interesting things since then.
Right.
But it's like that thing of like coming back to something like, nope, that's still good.
Yep. Even quite tasty.
Even in the pantheon of all the things I've had, it's still quite tasty.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kyle, now that we have a great drink, what do you want to talk about this week?
I've gotten on a kick, Nick.
Kick Nick.
I've started reading a bunch of classic novels.
Approved.
Was just in like the mood to do it.
Yep.
I think we talked about it on one episode. I recently read Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah, we did a couple episodes ago.
Had never read it, just loved it. Really enjoyed it. Last week I read a book that I think I had to read in college, but
so you didn't
really,
right.
Or who knows how much I actually read of it. I saw the book, and all I could really remember about it was that it was about expatriates.
Sure.
Over in Europe.
Oh,
that was it. That was all I could remember about it, and that it was written by Ernest Hemingway. I remembered that.
Okay. Yep.
But it's The Sun Also Rises.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Saw that one and wanted to read that and give it a proper reading.
Yeah.
And so I picked it up and read it last week. I think we should talk about
it. You don't have to twist my leg or anything.
Yeah.
Or my arm. Like you can twist what you want to twist, but like,
whoa.
No, wait. Let's talk about the book.
Yeah.
Sure.
When did you read it for the first time?
Honestly, not that long ago. Maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't that long. And I say that like having read a bunch of other Hemingway. But for whatever reason, just never read The Sun Also Rises.
Right.
And I don't think it was never assigned to me. It was always like oh yeah, and if you like Hemingway, read The Sun Also Rises.
Right.
So I read it definitely within the last year for sure.
Right.
And loved it.
Was it a similar kind of like, you just saw it and was like, hadn't read that, need to read it?
Yeah, in some ways. Like I really do like Hemingway. I know that like he's problematic in some ways. But for me, it was one of those like, yeah, I need to get to that.
Spoiler alert, I didn't know he committed suicide.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did not know that until like a couple of days ago.
That's
I was like,
a thing.
What?
Yeah, that's a thing. In Idaho?
I don't know
where.
It
was in Idaho.
I think I was watching Thug Notes.
Yeah.
He said that, and I was like, oh, all right. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those, like, I always wanted to read it, and I just made time or like found the means to do so. So
right.
I did it.
Right. All right. So quick synopsis.
Yep.
story of more or less a group of friends who are expatriates after World War I, living in Europe. Starts in Paris.
Yep.
They go to Spain, Pamplona specifically to watch
the bulls,
running of the bulls, the just the whole fiesta around that event,
and bull
the huge,
fights.
week-long fiesta that happens there. I mean, they get out, they do some other things, and then return home.
That's literally it,
more or less. Yeah, that's
that
just
is
kind
the
of
plot of the novel. Mm-hmm.
And as a, let's say, 19-year-old college student in North Alabama who had zero life experience, surprisingly, I don't think I got much out of this novel at that point in time.
100%. It does not. I don't feel like it resonates with you unless you've traveled.
Sure.
And you have a bit of experience under your belt.
I mean, I feel like I could see myself perhaps in like the 30s or 40s, and then reading this and being excited by the concept of travel. And, reading it, and especially like with the detail that Hemingway puts into locations of
description.
At the beginning, the first third of the book is in Paris. And certainly, having been to Paris, it resonates so much more now. But like, I think I could perhaps, at a time period without the internet, reading that and being so kind of enthralled by the description of walking through Paris.
That's what Paris is.
Yeah, walking through the streets,
Yep.
stopping on this bridge, looking at Notre Dame. Like, I think perhaps that would have been really interesting at the time.
Yeah.
But as a college student, as a teenager, reading that, nothing grasped me.
Yeah, you have no appreciation for, first of all, like how Hemingway's writing these things.
Sure.
And the truisms that he's capturing in those moments.
Right.
And I think like
very subtly too.
Like I if you want to get into some deep kind of literary nerdy stuff,
right?
I could push up my glasses and
just go to town.
Sure. And I agree completely. Like so many of the things that we call literature, capital L literature,
right?
It's lost on the people that read it or are forced to read it the most.
Yeah, for sure.
I think an argument is made, could be made, and should be made for people reading, I don't know if I want to say like the best literature first kind of thing, but like reading literature that has made an impact.
Right.
And I think Hemingway's definitely made an impact,
right.
At least in terms of American and Western writing. But I feel like, as so many things are in the art world, the more you mature and experience, the more those works become better and have more depth.
Right.
And I think Hemingway, in the case of The Sun Also Rises, is absolutely true.
Yeah.
What you just said.
Yeah. Like within the first few chapters, it was immediately clear to me that like this has so much more meaning now. And like I spent like a few nights like kind of thinking about like why would you even assign this to a class of teenagers? Like I feel like it would be so difficult for anybody at that age to really grasp. And I think there is something to I guess, like, as a professor, as a teacher, you want to teach something that energizes you.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's just more or less like the kind of the context there. But reading it as an adult, as somebody who has traveled, been to Europe, and could appreciate that context, yeah, it was absolutely like deeply enjoyable.
Oh yeah,
even just as like a travel novel.
And so I think that what Hemingway does in terms of the majority of his writing is he does what we as individuals do naturally, in that that there's so much subtext to the things that he's conveying. And literary scholars and maybe even Hemingway, I don't remember if he actually said this, but it's this idea, I think it's called the iceberg writing or iceberg theory or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's the idea of like Hemingway's giving you this understanding and that there's so much more beneath it.
Sure.
Like an example would be when Jake Barnes, who's our protagonist, which is a great name, Jake Barnes.
Jake Barnes.
When Jake Barnes, our protagonist, there's a scene where he gets like roaring drunk.
Yeah.
And he's having a conversation with Lady Brett Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about like basically, I love you. Like I love you, but I cannot give you the things that you want. And so ultimately what's wrong with Jake is like he has a war wound, and his war wound prevents him from getting an erection.
Right.
Like he cannot have sex in that way.
Right.
And so he's telling her all of these things that like, I love you, I want to be with you, but I can't give you what you want. And like Hemingway never fully conveys everything, but like the manner in which he writes, you understand all of the pain that, not just physical, but all the pain that like Jake is going through, telling this woman that he loves her, but he can never give her everything that she wants. And she understands that as well. And so like that writing is all that subtext. Like how many conversations do you have with people where you're telling them things?
You're talking around
exactly
the actual thing you want to say.
Exactly. And everyone or someone perceptive enough knows what you're talking about.
Right.
But you don't have to say it.
Yeah.
And that's what The Sun Also Rises does very, very well.
Yeah. Jake and Brett's conversations early do lead you to think that like, okay, through the course of the novel, we're going to end up with them
together.
Yeah. That's kind of like your expectation. But then through the course of the novel, you actually see the torture that kind of both of them are in, because he knows that he can't give her what she needs, but she also can't be with him because, and it's all to do with the war.
Right.
The war messed her up in a way that she's not going to be able to ever connect truly to another person also.
Yeah, he needs an emotional connection. She needs a physical connection, and neither one can give each other what they need.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like they are absolutely just damned to suffer through this reality. And I think in that way it subverts your expectations so well. But then also, like, again, as a person who has experienced life, that resonates on such a better, in such a better way, in a more meaningful way than it could possibly to a teenager who has got their life ahead of them and is expecting nothing but joys.
That right there to me is the crux of the novel, in that like as a young person, generally this is high school reading, early college reading, like you mentioned, you have all of these like bright, beautiful hopes in front of you.
Right.
Whereas this is a novel of what happens
just bummer after bummer.
Yeah. What happens like when all the shit's been handed to you.
Right.
And like you've made it out, but you're not the same. You've changed. And how do I deal with all of that?
But then, aside from all of that stuff, there is also just this lovely portrayal of life, just carefree and just traveling over Europe and
I popped
eating
into this bar
and drinking
and like I drank
constantly, going fishing on a whim, like enjoying this fiesta. Like there is also this like very glorious.
We sat outside and just smoked the day away.
Yeah, just like absolutely like you learn that like Jake's a writer for like a newspaper. Another one of their friends is an author.
Yeah.
You slowly begin to like learn like all their things, but like at no point in time do any of them ever do work. Like at some point in time I texted you like the joys of what it must have been like at that time period, sitting down to write letters. At one point in time, Jake is in one of the towns in Spain, and they had just arrived. And like each time they get to a new locale, the owner of the hotel or somebody seems to already know them, and so they get all of their mail forwarded there. And hey, if anybody comes calling for me, they can reach me here, kind of a thing. But after they had just got there was like a message or a passage where Jake goes to write letters. Yep, I just need to go write some letters.
Yeah, and I need to tell people what's going on.
Yeah, just let them know where I'm at, what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and I was just like, wow, that's the best Facebook status update ever.
For sure.
Of like, no, I just need to go let a few good friends or important people to me.
Yeah.
And just write to them. And like that physical act of I need to go do the thing and put pen to paper and reach out.
Yep.
And like how awesome that is.
Yeah. Well, and to me, like when you texted me that, like we had a text back and forth conversation in that, like if Jake really did do this, and let's say he's writing a letter back to the States, that would take a couple weeks maybe to get back from Spain to the States.
Right.
So like there's no immediacy. So by the time that he gets this letter to whomever he's writing, or even someone in Europe he's writing, it's a couple of days and he could have moved on by then.
Right.
So there's a sense of distance between the person you're writing, but how personal that writing aspect is,
right?
Too.
Yeah,
and it is very clear that the novel is a novel of a different time. I mean, unequivocally.
Yeah.
And it's post World War I, and like there's this kind of like bright hope of everything. And granted, what you just mentioned, these people are characters are moving through life post World War I, where everything seems kind of like there's a brand new hope, but they themselves are very much disillusioned.
See, I don't read it too much with a hopeful connotation to it.
Interesting.
I didn't really get that. I mean, I think one, just knowing that World War II is a few years away.
Sure.
But also too, like I kept reading it as like kind of it's difficult to appreciate where you are.
Yeah.
Practically all the characters have some thing that's like damaged them.
Yes.
And either addressing that damage or that just life has left you to a point of not being able to fully live anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I really never got that hopeful, bright future, better days are ahead of us kind of thing. That context of, like, look at how great this really is. Like, somebody reading it, I'm like, oh, man, like, to be training around Europe on a whim, like, yeah, let's go over to Pamplona and go watch the fiesta. That's, coming up. We could do some fishing while we're there. We'll be there for a couple of weeks. It'll be great. And then we'll just come back to Paris and continue on with life. We're going to have absinthe. We're going to have wine. We're going to have beer. We're going to have all these things. It's going to be incredible. We're just going to hop from cafe to cafe and just enjoy life. But they can't enjoy life.
And I think that's
because they're so damaged by the things that have happened.
That's what the title points to, is that even in the midst of all of these things, the sun will rise tomorrow.
Right.
The sun also rises tomorrow. Like, that is a thing that we can count on. So, like, for Jake, yes, I am a damaged individual, and I'm going throughout life, and, like, I think, though, while he doesn't recognize in the text, and this is part of that, like the way Hemingway is writing, he doesn't outwardly recognize that all of these things are great. But there's this, to me, a very base level understanding of, I did not die. I made it out. That doesn't mean that I'm better or worse than anyone, but I made it out, and there is a new day. So, like, for him, you're right, damaged both physically and mentally, but he's still here. And he knows so many people who aren't here. So there's that joy in some ways, the mundane, where we see is like, oh, let's traipse around Europe. For him, this is just like, well, this is now what I do.
Right.
I write articles occasionally, I guess,
Maybe.
But I traipse around Europe. And so that is the good thing about life. I am now able to do that. Now, whether Hemingway mentions that or not, I don't think that he outwardly says that. And that's part of the subtext of, like, you're supposed to understand all of this. You're supposed to get that even in the midst of all of this just bleak shit, there's still, we're going to go hang out and have a good time. We're still going to, sit out and watch these bullfights, and let's bet on some bulls. And bullfighters.
Sure.
And, like, there's going to be an affair between a bullfighter and someone else. I can't remember exactly that plot point, but like was it Brett? Yeah. Okay. So, like, that's right. Cause he's like,
she's basically slept with everybody in the novel.
Right. Right.
Every main
Except
character that has a name, she slept with him.
Cause Jake can't.
Right. She tried to, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. And so, like, there's that, like, there's still some hope associated. So I don't know. I think there's this like subtext of hope that's never actually discussed, and that's part of the allure of the novel too. It's like all these characters are, I don't even want to say like cautiously hopeful. It's like they recognize that, like, all of this can be taken away, and so that's why they're almost living in that moment.
Yeah, but it's like I don't read it in any way of like a carpe diem positive mode. Like to me, I think that's like, and maybe that's just where I'm at. Of like, to me, I'm reading it as like, yes, the sun also rises. We will the sun will continue to rise. We will continue to move forward. We'll continue to go on. But it's like, even with all these luxuries that we have, the things that are perhaps the most desirable, I can't have. So those don't even really provide much satisfaction.
I'm just existing.
Yeah, and it's just It is what it is. Like there's one guy that they meet while they're fishing up in the mountains. Even in that character, he's explaining how much fun they had fishing. He hasn't met a lot of guys. I can't remember. I think he's American, and he's trying to like set it up so that they do this again in the future.
Yeah.
And Jake's just kind of like, yeah, we'll totally do it again sometime. But like, also just kind of like dismissing the guy too.
We may meet you.
Yeah, perhaps we will. I mean, we'll definitely do it. But if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that guy says something about how it's been great to laugh. It's been great to have a good time. I haven't done that a lot since the war. And too, like when you put it in context with things like All Quiet on the Western Front,
right,
and stuff like that, to know like the true horrors that generation went through, and then the concept of the lost generation, of how they were just kind of like stripped of their ability to enjoy life.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like more or less the read of it that I got, was that, yes, life will go on. Life will continue. But for these people,
the horrors,
it's just hard to get past what has been done to them.
And I think like your reading is not wrong by any means, because I think you can very easily read the novel in terms of, look at all these, you mentioned damaged people, and all they're trying to do is in some ways rectify those lost years and cope with the things that have happened to them. And they're not doing it well, because they spend 90% of the novel drunk.
Yeah.
And so like they're trying to, cope with all these things, and they're not doing it well. And I think that like that is an absolutely apt reading. Like it's not wrong by any means. And so what I'm seeing as the hope, I think you're seeing as
I feel like you're reading it as almost like Scarlett O'Hara, of like, even though all this shit has happened, I will live another day.
Sure.
I will become better than this, or I will get past this. Whereas like I'm reading based off of the characters, just this kind of like, I don't really care anymore.
Here's
like,
where
yes,
we
the
are.
sun will rise tomorrow. It is what it is.
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
Yeah. I see that too. Yeah.
Like I don't see that passion in any of the characters of hope, of let's be better. Let's make this world better. It is just kind of more like acceptance of like, okay,
here's where we are.
Yeah. Going back to Paris. We'll see y'all there.
Yeah. Y'all don't want to come? All right. Y'all late on the train? The train's late? Well, that's fine.
Yeah, no, we stopped off in wherever. We're going to be here for a few days. We'll see y'all when we get there. Okay, cool. It is just like this carefree, melancholy existence that outside of it, reading it sounds amazing. Sounds great.
But I would not want to be any
But like
of those
these
people.
characters,
Nope,
are just showing you that like, well, yeah, but like even in this grand existence, if you're not in the right headspace, or you know, if you've gone through some shit that has changed you, it doesn't matter. Because you're not going to be there to enjoy it.
Exactly.
You're somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's such a bummer, but at the same time, it was a really enjoyable read.
And to me, that's what makes that particular work. And that's like, I think that if I'm not mistaken, most people count that as Shakespeare's. Most people count that as Hemingway's like greatest work, even though it was his first major work.
Right.
And it's because it captures so distinctly so many perceptions of that time frame.
Right.
And time period, I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
What I did think was absolutely fascinating too was going back to the details that he would put specifically in Paris. While they were in Paris, he would talk about, going and like taking walks with these friends or getting a cab ride somewhere with such detail that you can pull up Google Maps.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely walk the same path that he did and get to this bridge and turn around in Google Maps Street View and see the view of Notre Dame that he's talking about from that bridge. Like, that is mind-blowing that we live in a time period that you can do that.
Yeah,
compared to when this book was written.
I think that's very European in some ways, because like Dickens did the same thing, and this is like 1800s, where he would talk about traipsing around London, and in a variety of his works, and you can still basically do that today because these cities are so old that not much has changed in that way. It's super cool that you can do that.
Yeah, just wild that we live in a time period that you can, on your phone in your pocket while you're reading the thing, pull up a street view and stand where he was standing as the character is in that moment and look at the view, visually see the view that he's talking about, was just like blew my mind apart.
There's a really cool walking tour of Dublin. It's based on James Joyce's Ulysses.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so Ulysses is supposed to be like a day and like what happens. And it's this like, pretty long novel, and it's rambling and all these other things. But like you could theoretically follow that character's movement around Dublin.
Right.
And it's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Things like that.
Man. Yeah. No, great book. Really enjoyed it. Would love to go to Pamplona. Although I say that, and I probably wouldn't. The concept sounds great, but I hate a crowd. I just don't know. Like, I'm sure that fiesta is like,
well, and I
what it reminded me of?
They discussed that in the novel too, where like Jake's like, yeah, this is cool and everything, but like, let's just go back to the cafe and hang out.
Well, that, and like there was like one passage where they specifically talked about how at the beginning of the fiesta they took away all the comfortable wicker chairs and brought out all these cheap rickety things just because like they don't want their nice stuff to get ruined, So
and Jake's
it was like,
what the hell?
He's like, yeah, no, this is a bummer.
Yeah.
It also reminded me of City Slickers.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning of City Slickers, that's what they're doing. They're doing the running of the bulls. And I think that's just like my only other like very clear pop culture reference to the running of the bulls. But I think funny too, just because like that's also a movie about a guy who more or less has like lost his lust for life.
Yeah.
And has to find it again. I'm sure that's probably intentional.
Probably, yeah.
Because
a weird connection.
Well, I think the running of the bulls specifically, something I was reading afterwards, just doing like a little bit of like history research on the novel, like that popularized that festival and made it kind of like a world
for a Western
thing.
Audience. Yeah.
So like, I would think to reference it 40 years later in a movie would certainly be intentional.
Yeah. I think so.
So yeah.
You got anything else?
No, I don't think so.
No, we've basically finished the whiskey in our glasses.
Yeah.
We got some more in the bottle, and we might pour some more later.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, we'd love to know, what do you think about the Laphroaig cask strength, whether or not you've had the Batch 11 like we did from the 2019, or you've gone and visited Laphroaig and gotten yourself the upgraded Dram, the Batch 14.
If you went last year.
Right.
Or this year.
Or you just found a bottle.
Or 2 years ago.
Well, it depends on when you listen to it.
2 years ago when you got that.
It was 2024.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Duh. I was thinking about it. For some reason I was thinking Ireland.
Nah.
Yeah.
That's Scotland.
Yeah. But if it's this year,
right,
when this episode comes out,
you might have a different batch.
You might have batch 15.
Sure. Or maybe batch 14 was from anyway, we want to know, what do you think about Laphroaig cask strength?
Yeah.
That's basically what we want to know.
Or what's your favorite Laphroaig expression?
Yeah.
Maybe like that quarter cask.
Ooh, that Kyrgyz.
Yeah. I'd like to try all of them.
We'd also love to know, what do you think about classic literature in general?
Yeah. What's that one classic novel that you keep going back to?
Or what's that one classic novel that you know you should read but have yet to do so?
Yeah. What's on your to-do list?
And have you read The Sun Also Rises?
Yeah. What's your thoughts?
Thoughts on Hemingway as a whole?
Yeah.
Well, you can get in touch with us through email. That's drepandstone@gmail.com. You can also get in touch with us through social media.
It's always one word, Drep and Stone, DRP and Stone. Come find us wherever we're socializing that media and socialize it along with us.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this in real time, next week, we'll talk about our year in review, and we'll talk about hopes and dreams for the future.
It's going to be lovely.
For sure.
A lot of hope.
A lot of dreams.
Yeah.
A lot of future.
Yeah.
And we'd love it if you support the podcast. You can tell someone about Drep and Stone. You can rate us wherever it is you find great podcasts like this one. And finally, you can support us financially on Patreon. That's patreon.com/drepandstone.
All good things.
All good things. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
May your glass overflow.
And your ass never show. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.